At this point, you ought to have a couple designs that you really like. So if I really liked this one and I really liked that one, then I may just mess with the colors on those two. And it's kind of hard to see. You might need to do this on the paper part to see the colors. Like I said, just keep messing with colors, and you might ask your neighbor what they think, which ones work best for your specific design. And then after you've messed with the colors, you might want to mess with a few other things. We're going to talk about gradients, and we'll talk about this technique that I did, but you don't have to do my technique. You can do any number of other things. There are a lot of tools over here that we haven't talked about yet, but let's talk about the gradient. So if I wanted to do a gradient, I would select the shape that I want to make gradient, choose my gradient tool, and then I actually have to go to the gradient palette over here, and I have to turn on the gradient. Okay, so I've lost my color, right? So what you do to get color is you double click on these little side arrows, and right now it's stuck on a gradient. But what you can do is click on the swatches, and you can choose any of these swatches that you want. So if I wanted a dark blue, I could click dark blue and then come back here and I can adjust it with these sliders. I don't know if you remember when we talked about color, we talked about CMYK. So as I change these, it's changing the value of cyan and magenta and yellow and black, which is the key value. So you can mess around with those if you wanted to, finding a color that suits you. And then the other side you do the same thing with. And then you can actually use your gradient tool to control how much of the blue and white that you see. So if I click and drag here, then the blue is going to be on this side, and it's going to be a lot more blue than it's going to be white. Or if I only move it a little bit, there'll be a lot of white and just a little bit of blue. So it depends on the look that you're going for. The longer the gradient, or the longer I drag here, the more smooth the gradient's going to be. The shorter, the more harsh it will be. Obviously, the gradient is not going to help you with your versatility in your logo. But as long as you have a solid shape that can be made into a solid color, then putting a gradient in your logo is okay. The other thing that I did down here is create white lines, and that's really simple too. Let's zoom in here. I just used the line tool. If I wanted to have curved lines, I could use the pen tool and make curved lines. What I did was I copy pasted it, or alt drag, and just kind of moved that shape around. Now out here it looks a little funny, but if I select everything and move it onto a white, then you can see this nice effect that has. The gradient here is a little strange on the white paper, so I would probably need to adjust that. But other than that, I do actually kind of like this new design. Once you're finished, if this were my final design, I would probably mess around with this a little bit more. I would do it on a new artboard so I can see what it's actually going to look like. So for example, let's see what that looks like. Ooh, it's kind of cool. And I could go on and on and on with this. Once I find one that I like, however, we're going to group it, Command G. That will just allow me to make sure that when I'm moving it, none of it will separate from the logo that I created.